Check this out. Today we're going to explore maybe the most underrated chord structure, the spread triad. The spread triad is a voicing style for your basic triad chord where you take the middle note and you move it up an octave. When you do so, you get this bright and beautiful sound, and it has a more interesting interval structure than your basic 1-3-5 voicing. Essentially, the interval structure becomes more interesting because when we create a spread triad, we get a sixth if we look at the notes going note by note. So for example, in this G chord right here, we start with a perfect fifth from G to D, and then from D to B, we have this major sixth sound. In general, for me at least, any voicing that contains a second or a sixth in the internal melody, that's a recipe for creating an interesting and unique voicing. Why? Well, if you look at the most common voicings on guitar, like your drop 2 chords, drop 3 chords, basic chords, and even some jazz chords like a minor 9 chord, if you look at the ascending melody going note by note in the chord voicing, things usually move by thirds, fourths, and fifths. So for example, this drop 2 C major 7 chord, it ascends by a fifth, we have C to G, and then we have a G to a B, which is ascending by a third, and then from our B to E, we ascend by a fourth. So there's no seconds, there's no sixths. In this minor 9, we ascend by a third, and then we have a fifth, and then we have a third. So again, anytime you have a second and a sixth in a voicing, that usually creates something that's going to sound pretty unique and pretty different, and the spread triad fits into that category. So with that being said, in this video, we're going to do a deep dive on major and minor spread triad shapes and their inversions. If you guys need more resources, chord diagrams, PDFs, be sure to check out my Patreon page. Let's dive into it. For the major chord, let's start by looking at shapes for a G major sound. There are 3 figurations: root position, first inversion, and second inversion. In the first and second inversions, you're going to have a bass note other than G as the lowest pitch note in the chord. However, it's important to note that G is still the root note of the chord, or the tonal center of the chord. So when you're playing these, even though there's a note other than G in the bass, for the first and second inversion, they are still G chords. Now here are the shapes for spread triads based off a G major chord. I've already actually played them for you, but we'll look at them in more detail. So here's our root position shape. Now this one will probably be a little more practical and easy to use. Here's our first inversion. This is one of my favorite sort of like strummy chords. So this one has the third in the bass, and then this one is our second inversion chord here. So this one puts the fifth in the bass. Also a pretty good strumming chord. Now we can do the same thing with other major chords in our key. So in this case, we can build them off the 4 chord, which is C. So we can start with our root position, so we can play this shape here where we really have to stretch, or this one, which is quite a bit more ergonomic. Here's our first inversion, and then we have our second inversion. Now, when it comes to chord progression ideas, the inversions are really nice because you can cycle between chords with minimal movement. So for example, I could shift from the C chord to a G chord, and we have this really nice, smooth sound. We could try it again. So C to G. So in this case, actually, C in first inversion to G in second inversion, C, G, etc. So the inversions, again, are really nice for that smooth and fluid chord playing. Next up, let's explore some major shapes off the A string and the D string. So the same theory applies. So we have our root position. Now we're heading this way. So the next shape we can play is our second inversion chord with the fifth in the bass. You can play it in a few different ways. This way is probably a little easier. And then we have our first inversion. Now let's do a C chord, so our 4 chord in the key. So this is our root position, our first inversion, and then we have our second inversion. So you could do it like this, or you could do it like that here. So some hybrid picking definitely helps. For the D string, the shapes look like this. So we have our root position, then we have our first inversion. Now you're probably not going to actually strum these chords in your lines and ideas, but they're great for like single note ideas, maybe arpeggio, twinkly, stuff like that. For a C chord, there's our root position, our first inversion, and our second inversion. So anyways, those are the spread triads for major chords. Let's move on now to looking at some minor shapes. For minor chords, let's look at these relative to an A root. So these will be A minor chords. We're still in the key of G major, so this is the 2 chord. So this is our root position. You can also play it like this. First inversion. Just like with the major chord, the first inversion is a great strummy power chord type sound. So it pairs really well with that major first inversion chord. And then we have our second inversion. When you're playing these, again, make sure you know what inversion that you are actually working with so that you don't get confused. This is an A minor chord, it just has the E in the bass. did when you're practicing, again, you can cycle between different chords to create these smooth chord progression ideas. So let's say we had this A minor, we could go to like C over E, maybe a G over D. We have our A minor again, a G, B minor, etc. So you can create that nice fluid flow using the inversions. For the minor spread triads based off the A string and the D string, they look like this, starting with the root position chord. Then we have our first inversion shape, our second inversion, and still off the A string, I just want to go up an octave so you can see the shape again. This is our root position. So now let's move to the D string. So we have root position, one more time, first inversion, and finally second inversion. So those are the minor spread triads. Okay, if you guys have made it this far, I want to give you some tips on what you can do with these chords. So the first idea is to write a strummy, choppy idea like the one I played at the beginning of this video. So these chords land really well again to this sort of power chord type sound. So definitely try to write an idea that does that has some high energy. Use some distortion and you'll have some success. The second idea is to play around with chord progressions like I did throughout the video. So try these spread triads, jumping around between different chord shapes, different chord qualities and ideas, and see if there's anything that sticks. Another thing we can do is try adding open notes to the spread triad. So let's say we take this A major spread triad here, and we try its inversions. If I add this open B and E string, it turns the chord into an A add 9 sound, and we have these really nice open voicings. Or what if I took a D major chord and added the open E string? Well, we get this open D add 9 sound, which is super pretty. So once again, try adding open notes to your spread triads and see if you like the sound. Last but not least, try arpeggiating the chords or creating little gestures around them in order to create riffs. Try maybe palm muting, different techniques. You never know what you'll come up with. Most importantly, play, experiment, and see what you can do with the sound. Alright folks, so there you have it. I hope you guys had fun learning about spread triads, and I hope you can implement them into your playing and writing. If you like this video, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, be sure to check out my Patreon page, where for as little as $1 a month, you guys will have access to bonus content like guitar tabs, chord diagrams, lesson notes, and stuff like that. Anyways, thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.